Some are applauding, others not so. That is to the appointment of the Business Council of Australia Chairman Tony Shepherd to head the government's new audit into government spending. Well, one of those we seek an opinion from each Thursday is Andrew Broad. He is the new member for the Nationals in the Victorian country seat of Mallee. He's out and about in his electorate today in the Victorian town of Horsham and joins us from his car. Nice to have you on Breaking Politics, Andrew. Welcome in. Perhaps first you might tell us what work you're doing in the electorate today.
Good morning, Tim. Look, one of the things that I'm doing today is I'm actually opening a new farm innovation project. So we've seen investment in research and development, and this will help breed better canola varieties, which will help our farmers. And so it's a rural electorate I represent, so it'll be a good day.
What's your view looking in on the government's Commission of Audit to examine expenditure? Are you concerned about potential cuts, or do you applaud it?
Look, I think it's going to be a challenge for the government to find the balance between a level of austerity and also maintaining confidence in the economy so people can invest. There's no doubt that we've spent over the last 6 years as a country. We're going to have to rein some of those expenditure in, and it seems appropriate that we get some external skills to bring to the fore what are the things that we can look at cutting and what are the things that we need to keep going so business continues to invest.
What about the selection of the chairman of the Business Council of Australia to head the Commission of Audit, Tony Shepherd? That is, clearly business has credentials to get in and cut costs, but it is quite a pointed statement on the government's close proximity to the big end of town in the business sense, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I can't comment on Tony as a person. I don't know Tony, but the principle I think is sound. There's no doubt that governments don't create wealth. It's the pursuits of individual Australians and the pursuits of business that create the wealth. Governments distribute the wealth that we create. So we want a government that's going to work with business as opposed to work against business. And I think what we saw over the last number of years, business was often put to one side or wondering, what are the long-term strategic directions for a government so they can make those adaptations. So I think it's very wise that we're appointing someone to this position who's got business credentials and has, I guess, experience in representing business so that we can drive the Australian economy and lift the standard of living for the average Australian.
Okay, on the one hand, we're looking at a significant cutback in government costs. On the other, a $5.5 billion paid parental leave scheme that the Prime Minister is championing. Are you confident that Australia can afford Tony Abbott's paid parental leave scheme?
Look, I guess I've got to look at it with some detail. The principle is having an available workforce so that women who are skilled can then go on and have children and then come back into the workforce. And I guess there could be an argument that a paid parental leave, if it's done properly, could be beneficial to the Australian economy. The challenge I've got as a rural representative where the average wages are lower than you might find in some of the more affluent suburbs in our cities is ensuring that there's a level of equity. And that's something I've got to dig into the detail of the Coalition's policy and get my head around. So
are you comfortable with earners on $150,000, mothers leaving work and getting $75,000 in 6 months to have a baby?
Look, I guess I want to look at this because this is always the thing that's highlighted when you try a government policy is the extremes of both, and then they point out the differences in equity. Sometimes, though, in trying to make something too restrictive, you spend so much time administrating that it's actually easier to just let it flow. So, we need to look at the mean average, not so much the $150,000 lady who's earning that sort of money. Certainly, in my electorate, the average wages are not that high. So I think there needs to be some recognition of the farmer's wife, for example, who's working on the farm, working in the business, might not have a defined high-level pay packet, but they're still just as much contributing to the Australian economy. So I want to have a look at some of that tweaking and get my head around that, and that'll be some of the discussions I'll have within the Coalition.
The New South Wales Rural Fire Service says an army explosives exercise triggered the Lithgow fire that burnt out 50,000 odd hectares of bushland and destroyed several homes. What strikes you about the fact that an army exercise, certainly no doubt unintentionally, could cause such damage?
Look, I was Vice President of the Victorian Farmers Federation when Black Saturday happened, and I think it's never really wise at this point to spend too much time about how the fire started. Really, you get the bad weather conditions and, it can be a branch on a power line. It can be a person who shouldn't have been welding who starts a fire, or it could be an army exercise and you have unintentional consequences. So, let's not spend too much time working out where we're going to, affront blame. The weather conditions were horrendous. And I think that's what's led into it. And there's no doubt those who have been involved inadvertently starting a fire when it was unintentional, they'll be having a look at how they do things in different weather in those conditions and trying not to do them again, I'm sure.
What about the debate going on at the moment over the role climate change has or has not played in these bushfires? The Prime Minister says the UN official who links the two is talking out of a hat. And now former US Vice President Al Gore says, no, the link is like tobacco and lung cancer. What do you say about climate change and the fires we're seeing?
Look, I think it's firstly immensely insensitive, but hugely uninformed. I mean, this is Australia, with eucalyptus trees that do burn once the temperature gets very hot. I've been a farmer and I've been in very, very hot conditions. I've been very, very cold conditions. And we have climate variability in Australia. We have always had climate variability in Australia. To blame it on climate change is opportunist, I think. And, when I was Vice President of the VFF when we had the Black Saturday fires, and I had people ring us up who had lost their farm, had lost some loved ones in the fire, to then have people talking about political point scoring and climate change, like as if putting a tax on us is going to mean we're not going to have a bad fire day again. I think that's just so insensitive. And, I think people need to have the discussion around politics and the discussion about how do we be responsible citizens and reduce our emissions, but not use examples as a bad fire day where people are losing their livelihood to play politics.
OK, sensitive and insensitive is one question. Whether there is a link in actual fact, and there isn't a link, of course, is another. Do you think it's a legitimate debate to have in a couple of weeks' time or a couple of months' time?
Well, look, I think climate change and climate variability are two different things. I think as a global citizen that wants to leave the planet better for my people that come after me, I have to look at my impact on the planet. That's very different to saying that, the Australian population of 21 million can make a little change that's somehow going to affect the population and the climate of 7 billion people. I think we need to have some perspective. Australia doesn't sit under a glass bubble. They sit in the world. And, it's really a nonsense argument to say that anything we can do from a policy front will stop us from having bad fire days.
Andrew Broad, very grateful for you taking time out of your visit to Horsham to have a chat to us on Breaking Politics, and it's good to have you on the show as a regular.
That's good to be here. Thanks.